Nobel laureate Albert Szent-Györgyi said, "Life is a revolt against the statistical rules of physics, and death means that the revolt subsided and the statistical laws resumed their sway." So it seems that our physical body machine must be created by something other than physical laws. Of course, materialists don't like this idea. They say that physical interactions alone have created the bodies of living beings. But can materialists actually explain how physical interactions can produce living matter? No. The structure and composition of biological molecules, such as proteins and DNA, are so complex and so precise and specific that it's mathematically impossible to explain how such molecules could appear by chance and physical interactions. Human DNA contains enough information to fill an encyclopedia of 900 volumes. That's 40 times as big as the Encyclopedia Britannica. But we know that physical interactions by themselves can't produce new information. Even eminent scientists have agreed that the genetic code is like a signal from extraterrestrial intelligence. Now, what about the structure of the cell? Scientists admit that the living cell is far more complex than the most complex machine that man has ever designed. But even the simplest machines don't appear by chance and physical interactions. They have to be manufactured. Since cells are more complex than the most complex machines, they obviously don't come together by chance and physical laws. To think that they do is to avoid the obvious. The odds against even one cell appearing by chance are at least 1 with 40,000 zeros to 1 against. This is not just improbable or very improbable, it's inconceivably improbable. It's far beyond the scope of any materialistic theory. Now for the big question that's always challenged materialists. Where does the great variety of living creatures come from? Even materialists admit that living creatures look as though they've been designed. For example, the very outspoken atheist Professor Richard Dawkins has written, "Biology is the study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose." Similarly, Nobel laureate Francis Crick, another vocal atheist, has written, "Biologists must constantly keep in mind that what they see was not designed, but rather evolved." Of course, even after pointing this out, materialists avoid the obvious conclusion that living creatures are not just physical systems. Inspired by Charles Darwin, they say that new species are produced by the process of evolution, in which one species changes into another continuously in the process of time. However, there are serious problems with this so-called theory of evolution. The first problem is that one species never changes into a new species. Species only vary to a slight extent about a mean. No amount of breeding or mutation has ever created a new species. Rather, all scientific research shows conclusively that species are stable and self-consistent entities that don't change. The fossil record also shows that species don't change. When fossils appear in the fossil record, they do so abruptly, without links to previous species. There's not a single example in the fossil record of one species changing into another species by gradual stages. Besides that, the fossil record clearly shows that many varieties of living creatures have remained unchanged in millions and even hundreds of millions of years. For example, spiders have remained unchanged for more than 35 million years, cockroaches for 50 million years, sequoia trees for 50 million years, ginkgo trees for 65 million years, the beautiful and mysterious nautilus for over 100 million years, crinoids and bivalve mollusks for over 200 million years. Evolutionists say that single-celled creatures evolved into many-celled creatures and then into worms, fishes, vertebrates, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, apes, and finally to human beings. However, evolutionists themselves admit that there's not one example of an intermediate form between any one major group and another. Then there's the question, how is evolution supposed to take place? Materialists believe that new species are produced through mutations, are changes in the genetic code contained in the nucleus of the cell. But there are problems here. Firstly, mutations don't accumulate to produce new species. They only produce varieties of the original species. Mutation has never produced a new species or a new biological feature. And secondly, all known mutations are harmful, or at best neutral. Known mutations would be useful to the individual in the wild state. So in short, the so-called theory of evolution is not actually a theory at all. A scientific theory is a reasonable explanation of known facts. The so-called theory of evolution is an unreasonable and irrational cover-up of known facts. It avoids known facts, it ignores them, and it denies them. So it has nothing to do with science. On the one hand, even material scientists admit that living beings appear to be products of design. And on the other hand, there's no scientific reason to doubt this. So it's most reasonable to accept the obvious fact that the bodies of living creatures must have some cause other than the physical laws. To deny this is unreasonable. But what is that cause? We only know two types of cause: physical laws and consciousness. If the source and basis of all the conscious beings in the universe is not physical, then it must be consciousness, but universal consciousness. There must be a universal self. So much for living beings within the universe. Now, what about the universe itself, the beautiful and extraordinary place in which we live? According to materialists, the whole universe appeared spontaneously and causelessly out of nothing in a Big Bang. Now, this is an extraordinary belief, because science itself depends on the fact that every effect has a cause. So how can a universe of cause and effect appear causelessly? How can time and space appear causelessly? How could the laws of nature appear causelessly? This has nothing to do with common sense or systematic, consistent knowledge. In any case, scientists have proved mathematically that one can't explain the appearance of the universe simply in terms of chance and physical laws. The odds against the appearance of a universe that's capable of supporting life are 10 to the 10 to the power of 123. That's 10 with 10 to the power of 123 zeros. This improbability is far beyond the limits of conceivability, far beyond the limits of any physical description or explanation.